She wants to rebuild the military. She wants us not to forget that the Al-Qaeda did kill the people on 9/11 and are still now trying to take over Afghanistan, where a moderate Muslim democracy is struggling to try to kill the president the other day. But look, this is not even a political statement. The Commandant of the Marine Corps, I'd be surprised if he's an active Democrat. He might be. I'd be happy if he were, but I don't know. He said the other day, he said, I'm going to send 3,500 Marines to Afghanistan. But I cannot leave them unless you let me bring the Marines home from Iran. They have done everything they've been asked to do. It is time to bring them home, and she will do it. She will do it. And one last thing. Why did she pick her to do it? Same reason these people endorsed her, that have spent their lives in the military. Because she knows the most. You know the Pentagon asked Hillary, who's the first New York senator ever to be on the Armed Services Committee, to be on a small commission to plan the military of the 21st century. They asked her when the Republicans were in the majority, because they thought she knew more and cared more than anybody else about this. And as a senator on the Armed Services Committee, always with a Republican co-sponsor, because she thinks national security should be beyond party politics, she has passed bills to get body armor to our troops quicker, to protect the signing bonus for wounded soldiers who couldn't do their whole 4-year term. The Pentagon tried to get it back, but the soldiers got to keep it because of it. It's really important for South Dakota. She passed a bill that says members of the Guard and Reserves, when they come home now, for life, they get the same military benefits, health care benefits regular military people do. The same benefits for life. She passed a bill that requires that every man and woman coming out of Iraq and Afghanistan be tested for traumatic brain injury. Thousands of people have it. We have got to help them get their brains back. Now, this is not a close question if you think this is important. One last thing she wanted me to say. We can save most of the money you're spending in Iraq, but we can't spend it all, because she will never save it all, because she will never, ever let our country make the mistake we made after Vietnam and confuse an unpopular war with our moral obligations to the men and women who served in it. She won't let that happen. And this is a huge deal. And let me just say, I bet you there won't be a single young American vote on this unless you've got a relative in the military. But if we blow this, you'll pay the price. Take my word for it. There are 200,000 homeless veterans in America today. Almost all of them are Vietnam vets who have their generation's version of what you call post-traumatic stress disorder. And if they'd had Hillary's GI Bill for the 21st century, if they'd come home to counseling, to mental health care, to a decent veterans home to live in if they couldn't live on their own, to rent supports and education and small business and housing help, and if they have a relapse 2 years from now, somebody would come along and help them up and get back in their house, you wouldn't have 200,000 people sleeping under bridges and in cardboard boxes. She will never let that happen again. It's another reason to support her. Here's my last point about this. Every president who's ever served, that I know of, starting with Harry Truman at least, has remarked on the difficulty of doing the job once you get there. How hard it is to turn your speeches into solutions, your promises into progress. Harry Truman once said he was never sure when he signed an executive order whether anybody would do anything. And he was a great president. You ought to vote for her because she's the best change maker I've ever known. The best I have ever known all my life. And I mentioned some of the things she's done. But let me just say, you know Hillary got 70% of the vote in the Arkansas primary where she has not lived in 15 years. That they've only gone 3 times for Democrats in 44 years, and twice was for me. They pretty well had to do that. The most recent poll, Senator McCain was 16 points ahead of her opponent. Nothing for him to worry about. That's standard Arkansas performance. But she was 15 points ahead of Senator McCain because they know her and they know she's a changer. In New York, this will surprise you, in South Dakota, 40 of the 62 counties of New York State voted to re-elect President Bush over Senator Kerry because they are rural, agricultural, Republican counties. 2 years later, Hillary ran for re-election in those farming counties. She got 60% of the vote. And I was up there. I know why. I know why these New York farmers have gone all over America telling people to vote. Because they tell me the same thing. She is the only public official that ever did anything to help family farmers, to help small communities, to put them into the mainstream of economic growth. She figured out how to make things happen. You just have to decide if you care about it. And I'll tell you something, when it's all said and done, being a change maker is the most important thing. When I have been there quite a while, what I think about is not the speech I gave one time in Ghana to 1 million people. That was quite a rush. It's how many people whose lives were changed. That's all that matters. And you know, you've been very patient with me tonight, so let's have a little fun. It's easy to forget what you look like tonight when you get up in Washington as your president. And if you're not real careful, you can think you are somebody. I mean, even, you know what being president's like? They pay hail to the chief every time you walk in the room. For 8 years, every time I walked in the room, they played a song. I was lost for 3 weeks after I left the White House. Nobody would play a song anymore. Washington is not like South Dakota. It's a traffic nightmare. For everybody but the president, you zip along in a bulletproof limo. Don't even stop at red lights. No commute to work, to the most famous office in the world. Every night you get to go to sleep in America's best public housing. And your airplane is so cool, they make movies about it. Now we're laughing, but you get it, don't you? If you ever forget that you are nothing more than the most fortunate public servant on the face of the earth, you can get in trouble in a hurry. Look at the damage done to President Bush's second term by the way he treated his hand. Just look at that. We were all so bad. Listen, this is not a partisan comment. There are plenty of Republicans who loved him and could have done a good job with that, but they weren't part of that in-crowd. They forgot what you look like and what your lives are like. You will never have to worry about that with her. Never. Of all the people I have ever worked with in my life, she never forgets. Her whole life has been trying to change other people's lives. As her opponent even pointed out the other day, he's run for office a whole lot more than she has. This is only the third campaign she ever made. But she's been working to change other people's lives for a lifetime. My daughter got us all in trouble the other day in Indiana when they asked her, said, "Do you think your mother would be a better president than your father?" She said, "Sure I do." So I called Chelsea because people were ribbing me, but I said, and I thought my daughter would say something like this: "Oh, chill out, Dad, you can't run for anything. You're yesterday's news. She's on the ballot. What did you expect me to say?" That's not what she said. She said, "Dad, they asked me a direct question. I had to give an honest answer." And here's what I want you to know. For this moment in time, I agree with her. If we had never been married and she asked me to come here tonight, I'd be here anyway. And don't you forget, people like you in places like this have kept her in this race. They buried her. They said, "Oh, she's been buried more times than cat got lives." She was going to lose New Hampshire, but she didn't. She gained 16 points in 2 days and a night because of people like you in places like this. Can't win in Texas. Outspent $4 million on television. She won anyway because of people who needed a president. Ohio outspent 2-1, but she won all but 5 counties. The rural areas, the small towns, and people who needed a president. She won anyway. They said, "Oh, she's going down in Pennsylvania. It's more prosperous than Ohio." And she was outspent by $8 million, 3-1. But because of people like you in places like this, she won anyway. Indiana, right next to Illinois, 30% of the electorate in the Chicago media market outspent 4-1. But she hung on and won anyway because of people like you in places like this. You watch West Virginia. They got a lot of people who need a president. Watch Kentucky, the rural places. They got a lot of people who need a president. I'm just telling you, this has been an amazing year. I never saw anything like it. I don't have anything bad to say about anybody. But I'll tell you something. If you need a president, you'll never have a chance to vote for a better one. Thank you, and God bless you.